We're joined again for our weekly chat with South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. And Kristi, good morning. It's good to visit with you again. Let's talk about a few issues that have come up recently. Bills that you will propose for the 2022 session. One of those, it's kind of being framed as a school prayer protection bill, although your stance on this is that it shouldn't be seen as a religious bill. Explain what this bill would do and why you're supportive of it.
Well, we have legislative session that'll be starting here in less than a month, probably about 3 weeks, and so I am unveiling some of the bills that I'll be championing, introducing, and be talking about during session. One of these that you brought up is an opportunity to pray in schools again. I think we've seen a lot of discussion around this topic over recent years, but what this bill will do is create an opportunity for kids to have a moment of silence at the beginning of the day where some may choose to pray, some may choose not to. It's not a bill that would force anybody to do that, but it would give them the opportunity to do that again. I think so many times that opportunity isn't given, and it was something that certainly was intended by our founders to happen if people chose to, is to have that freedom, and making sure that here in South Dakota we honor that is incredibly important to us. You know, we're just protecting the kids' right to do so, and this topic has been many times manipulated in political discussions, saying that there shouldn't be prayer in schools, and that's not at all what our Constitution says. It's not at all what the founders of this country intended. They were protecting, religion from the state, from government, and giving kids this chance to start their day with a moment of silence, with a prayer, to focus and to really remember the blessings that we have is a wonderful thing. So I'm looking forward to the debate and getting this bill signed into law so that every student that's in the state of South Dakota gets to wake up, go to school, knowing that if they choose to have a little moment of silence and pray and reach out to the Lord, they sure can do that.
What would your response be, Governor, to the folks that they're not necessarily opposed to prayer, they just don't believe that a public school is the correct setting to do that in? Well,
I think that opinions will be all over the place on this one. No teacher, no administrator is going to say that we have to have prayer and that student has to sit there and pray. What that leader is going to say is, we're going to have a moment of silence. Take a quiet moment for the next couple of minutes, and we'll start our class when you're finished. And that'll be what it is. They can say what they would choose to use it to divide people. I choose to use it as a unifying message that we've got a lot of things going wrong in our schools today. We've got a curriculum that's gone off the rails. We need to refocus on a true and honest history in our schools. We've got violence going on in our schools. We've got broken families, and teachers are dealing with the consequences of that. I think that a little bit of focus for reflection and prayer is a good thing, and people can choose to use it as a different issue to have a discussion that divides us. I choose to show that South Dakota is using this as an opportunity to focus on our kids.
Do you have a sense, Governor, as to how receptive the legislature might be to this bill?
I think they'll be receptive. We'll probably see some pushback. It seems like in the legislature, that's what we do. We debate policy. We argue the pros and cons of every bill, and I think many times, especially the way the press, the Argus leader, Kelloland, like to tell these stories, that there's something dysfunctional by debate. Debate is a good thing. If you have the debate in the legislature when you're pushing bills, so that you see all sides of the issue and the consequences of it before it becomes law. So we'll have debate and we'll have discussion. I think that's a wonderful thing, and we'll have a better bill at the end of the day because of it.
Another bill you're proposing is basically a fairness in girls' or women's sports bill, and this goes back to an issue that's been talked about for a while now. Tell us what this bill would do.
Well, we want to ensure that all girls have an opportunity to be successful in athletics, and we're seeing that get eroded away in many other states and in different K-12 systems, athletic commissions, and even in our collegiate sports today. So this bill would simply say that a person would be enrolled in a sporting event based on their biological sex. Females would compete in female athletic competitions. Males would compete in male, and ensure that there is a level playing field. There are biological differences between males and females, and that is what will be the determining factor for which events that they compete in. We had this discussion here in South Dakota for years. People kind of forget that when I was back in Congress, USDA in the federal government was saying there could no longer be boys and girls events in rodeo. And the rodeo in South Dakota, 4-H rodeo, came to me and said, we need help. They're going to make us eliminate girls events and boys events, and girls will be in every boy events, and boys will be competing in the girls' goat tying and barrel racing, and we have specific events for different reasons. And I took that to war with the federal government alone. Nobody else wanted to touch it because they thought it was too political, but we got that decision reversed. So we've had to fight this in the past. We'll win here in South Dakota. We've got great language in this bill that we can ensure will be upheld in court. And people like to turn this issue into, a religious discussion. They like to turn it into a targeting of individuals discussion. That's not our motivation here at all. Here in South Dakota, we know that Title IX years ago gave girls the opportunity to compete on a level playing field against those who had the same biological traits that they were gifted with when they were born, and get the opportunity to succeed, get scholarships, go on to college, get their educations paid for. We want to make sure that that's still protected here in South Dakota.
What do you say, Governor, to people who say that this bill is discriminatory?
Well, they're wrong. They're just simply wrong. And I think those are people that are using it as an opportunity to just erode the law that we've had at the federal level and at the state level for many, many years. And I don't think we should ever underestimate people's ability to use language to push an agenda, or the words that they use, the methods that they use. Many times the tactics today become very divisive and twisting of facts in order to get something accomplished. So this is not at all about the targeting of individuals. It is not about having an agenda other than just protecting fairness.
Governor, the day before Thanksgiving, the South Dakota Supreme Court finally issued their ruling that struck down the constitutionality of the vote on adult use marijuana in South Dakota. It was a decision that was a long time in coming. I haven't had a chance to visit with you about your thoughts on that Supreme Court opinion and where that leaves the whole issue of adult use marijuana in South Dakota.
Well, I think many times people get confused because that decision by the Supreme Court dealt with recreational marijuana, and it had nothing to do with medical marijuana, medical cannabis, and that program. The medical program is in place. It's running. People have their medical cards, and that is stood up and operating in the state of South Dakota, and we'll start to see those dispensaries across the state of South Dakota in many, many places as well. So that is on track according to how the voters voted for it. But what the Supreme Court made a decision on was a ballot measure that was written unconstitutionally. And, we've challenged that in court because of how it was written. And a lot of people have questions about that. They know I'm not a fan of marijuana use recreationally. I've always been in favor of using it medically, as long as people knew what they were putting in their body, and it was certainly information that a patient was given so that they knew they were taking something that was safe. But this recreational program covered several different topics. It made dramatic amendments that are not allowed by our Constitution. And when I became governor, I took an oath to uphold our Constitution. So that Supreme Court did turn down and remove the ballot measure. And so that is one of the things that people are still discussing. But certainly, I think the facts of the matter is that when there is an unconstitutional measure that is passed even on the ballot, it's my job to make sure that we uphold the integrity of the Constitution and that we do challenge it when it's written in that manner.
I want to ask you, Governor, about the delivery of mental health care services in South Dakota. And there are some conversations going on that would change that model from more of a state delivery system to more of a regional system to help people who are in crisis. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that model might look like?
Well, this was something I talked about in my budget address because it included funding to stand up these regional health centers. And we have something like this that was established out in Rapid City in the Pennington County area. That construction is underway. And my proposal would bring those statewide. What happens today when somebody has a mental health challenge is oftentimes people call law enforcement and say, we have someone here who's dealing with suicidal thoughts or tendencies. We have someone here who's having a mental breakdown. Come and get them to protect their life. Or they end up driving them to an emergency room. The problem is that law enforcement and healthcare professionals in the emergency room are not oftentimes equipped to deal with these situations. It's not the best way to handle individuals who are going through a mental health crisis, and it's not workable as far as long-term solutions for them, and drives up the costs and dominates the time of those law enforcement individuals who are driving them across the state often to get them places they need to go to really, truly get healed. So what this would do would put up regional mental health partnerships with our counties and local professionals that would be crisis care units that would be open to individuals who are in crisis. And we could do a better job partnering with individuals, but partnering with nonprofits and these mental health professionals to make sure that when somebody runs into a situation like this or has a loved one that's dealing with a mental challenge, that everyone knows where to take them. They'll be there with not just health professionals, but also with crisis care counselors and mental health professionals that will help them start getting healed and the correct treatment right away.
Governor, in your budget address, you talked about some of the major unprecedented challenges the state has faced. You talked about historic flooding in 63 of the 66 counties, and then, of course, the COVID pandemic that brought on a lot of challenges. And you mentioned in your budget speech that frontline workers deserve our full support for their dedicated service over the last couple of years. I'm sure you've talked to some of these doctors and nurses who are exhausted in dealing with this pandemic. I want to give you a platform here just to talk about the dedicated service that they've provided and maybe what the state can do or should do to support those people.
Well, it's been challenging times, and I think sometimes we get to living in the day-to-day busyness of life and we forget really the path we've traveled the last several years, not just the flooding and responding to families in crisis. If you think about 2019, with 63 of our 66 counties being federal disaster areas, many of those families who lost their homes or had incredible financial challenges because of it were our healthcare workers. Then we throw them into a pandemic where they're asked to go into situations where they have no idea what's going to happen to their own personal health. Many of them were separated for weeks and weeks from their families, worked very long hours responding and caring for people who were scared, and it's not ended for 2 years, and now they see more and more individuals leaving their profession because of different things that are dealing with their way of life and even what's being required of them and their employers, and they're discouraged. So I just, want to remind everybody that it's your neighbors. It's the people sitting in church next to you. I was talking to a nurse just yesterday. She said it's nothing for her to work a 20-hour shift. She often works all night long, and then the next day somebody doesn't show up or they're understaffed, and in order to keep people safe in the hospital, she continues on into another shift, and it's challenging. So we need to remember and be grateful for those who get up every single day and serve. And they're not just serving and working long hours, they're making life-saving decisions while they're often exhausted, and they're also dealing with unprecedented, unpredictable situations. So in the state, I talked a little bit about that in my budget address and an increase that I'd like to provide for them and for state employees who often are doing the exact same thing, and for education, who are education professionals have been dealing through some different situations the last 2 years, taking care of our kids in unprecedented times. But it's a remarkable thing what South Dakota has done. It's a remarkable thing, the partnerships that we've had. And many hospitals and clinics are understaffed right now. We're focused on recruiting people to the state to help take care of individuals. Some of the mandates that healthcare centers have put forward have discouraged them and caused them to move on, but I continue to focus on what we can do to make sure that we're giving people the flexibility that we need to really do their jobs and to know how much they're appreciated.
You know, we were just talking about the delivery of mental health services in South Dakota, and you share stories like the nurse, it's not uncommon for her to work a 20-hour shift. I think of the mental stress that puts on our frontline workers, and they're people that we desperately need out there.
Well, and she was had just gotten off a 20-hour shift. She hadn't done any of her Christmas shopping yet. She had her entire family that was coming over in 2 days to spend Christmas because she was going to work all of Christmas. Her dog was sick. She had the heater in her house that wasn't working properly and couldn't get a contractor to come fix it. So many times, we get wrapped up in all the busyness of everything that we have to do, and we get cranky and short with the person in the checkout line or upset because we can't get our cream cheese at the grocery store, and we forget about the humanity around us. And we were down at Union Gospel Mission in Sioux Falls the other day and are going to go back down there because they're dramatically short on protein and stuff like that. But there's so many people that don't even have homes and they don't have families. And the Salvation Army in Watertown there does incredible work, not just taking care of people's physical needs, but their spiritual needs too. Christmas and the holidays is a very, very dark time for a lot of people. And according to what our Department of Health deals with and our Department of Social Services and Human Services, this is a time where a lot of people feel alone, and they feel like they don't have anybody, and it's the perfect time for all of us to take our families and go out and do something for people that would feel isolated, so that they remember how special this state is, and that at the end of the day we all have each other, and we do care about each other, and we do serve each other.
Well, let me wrap up our weekly conversation with this, Governor Noem. We're hearing a lot again in the national media about rising COVID numbers, rising hospitalization rates, deaths that are reaching certain milestones. We went through the vaccination stage, now the booster stage. We've heard about the Delta variant and the Omicron variant. And now we're at a time where people are going to be getting together for holiday gatherings. What would your message be to people who are concerned about this pandemic black cloud that continues to hang over our heads and their ability to enjoy the holidays with family and friends?
Well, let's keep some perspective. There's a lot we know about this virus now. It is a man-made virus. It is a virus that is mutating. In fact, I've discussed for hours with researchers around the world that say it's mutated so many times now that we've already been through the whole Greek alphabet. It changes dramatically, and staying in front of it with vaccines is good, but we're not going to be able to prevent infections. So people will catch the virus. Our job is to take care of people who would get very sick, just like it always has been since the very beginning. And in South Dakota, we have infections going on, but we're responding to those individuals, and it's not at levels that we can't take care of people. We're staying out there, keeping that hospital capacity in line. And also, it's not the COVID cases that are filling up our hospitals. We've got many flu infections. We've got many other respiratory issues that are going on. Many people didn't get sick for a year and a half because they stayed in their houses, and now they're picking up things when they're out and about, and those are the issues that are filling up many hospital beds too. So the same advice that you all heard me giving a year and a half ago is the same advice I would give you today. The best thing you can do is wash your hands. Wash your hands several times a day. If you're not feeling good, stay home. And if you feel like you are very sick and need medical attention, go seek it right away. Get some exercise. Take your vitamins. All those things make you much healthier to fight off any kind of a virus. And just remember that we have to figure out how to live with this virus. We haven't found a cure. We've found a lot of therapeutics, though, that help a lot of folks. And there's a lot of different options out there. So this is one of those situations where I'd encourage everybody to turn off their TVs and turn off the news and spend some time with your family and keep perspective, because if you listen to broadcasters talk on the evening news, they use the words over and over and over again. Aren't you scared? Aren't you worried? Aren't you fearful? And those words have an impact on you when you hear them over and over again, and it impacts you and your mental health. So I would just say turn those off. Talk about your blessings. Talk about how wonderful it is that we do have doctors and researchers who have given us tools that do work. And just remember that this is something that we will have to figure out how to live with viruses in our life, and we'll figure out the tools we need to fight them off and still enjoy our family and friends, especially around the holidays.
Governor, thank you again for your time this week. Merry Christmas to you, Brian, and your family, and we'll chat again next week.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas to everybody, and thank you, Mike. I love visiting with you.